Another potential hazard from plants are plant sterols or plant cholesterol. And I know this is an area that you've delved into and shared quite a bit on over the internet. Talk about what those are and when they become problematic.
It's a very good question. I had put out a YouTube video which talked about the danger of plant cholesterol. So, plant food does not have any cholesterol, but they do have sterols. And instead of being called cholesterol, they're called phytosterols. So, when you take olive oil, you are consuming phytosterols. When you eat avocado, you're taking a large amount of phytosterols. And cholesterol is not only a part of several hormones in our body, but it's an integral component of the membrane of every cell. So, in other words, the outer lining of all the cells that we are made up of will have a significant component of cholesterol that is giving the membrane fluidity, the right degree of rigidity, and that cholesterol is involved in signaling between cells. In other words, receptors that make one cell communicate with another cell are held together by cholesterol in the cell membrane. Right? These are called lipid rafts. The lipid raft theory, whether it is accurate or no, has been a subject of controversy, but most people think that there is some merit to it. For example, the insulin receptor sits in a part of the cell membrane that is very cholesterol rich. And one of the theories is that when you take a statin, you reduce the amount of cholesterol in the cell membrane, and the insulin receptor doesn't sit in the right orientation, and that's why you become insulin resistant. Now, there are a certain group of individuals who get what is called cytosterolemia. Cytosterolemia means that they have absorbed a large amount of plant cholesterol, phytosterols, and have replaced a portion of their cell membrane. Instead of it having cholesterol, it now has phytosterols. And when you have phytosterols in your cell membrane, the cell does not behave well. It doesn't have the kind of fluidity, it doesn't have the appropriate structure. The receptors are not oriented in the proper fashion, and these cells tend to malfunction. If they're red blood cells that are replaced with phytosterols, they have a shorter lifespan, they don't live as long, so you can run into all kinds of problems. We have an active mechanism in our gut. So if you look at the human digestive tract, especially the small intestines, there is a Niemann-Pick receptor, if I'm thinking correctly. When it picks up a phytosterol, it has a mechanism of actively spitting it back into the lumen so that we don't absorb it. And that's a very important concept for people to understand. And it's a very important concept to be taught in cardiology fellowships also. And there is a reason why I'm saying that. The body will make cholesterol if you don't eat cholesterol. Making cholesterol is a very expensive process. Like we discussed before, there are about 25 different enzymatic steps through which it makes cholesterol. And if you don't eat animal food, the body will be forced to make cholesterol, which is energy wise very expensive for it. And if you are on a plant based diet and you are taking a statin, not only are you not eating cholesterol, but with the use of a statin, you're stopping cholesterol production in several parts of your body, specifically in the liver, more specifically in the brain. And the body says, I am in a crisis. I cannot make cholesterol and I cannot absorb cholesterol. So, in that situation, the body becomes indiscriminate. When I say indiscriminate, it means that the active mechanisms to spit out the phytosterols is overwhelmed. And the body says, if I can't get cholesterol, let me see if phytosterol will work. I would say that 99.9% of cardiologists, if you interviewed them, would be unaware that phytosterol levels are significantly increased in people who are taking a statin. And this phytosterol, in my mind, is causing untold damage and harm that has not been properly investigated. So that is my hesitation that people are on a large amount of vegetable oils that will have phytosterols. They'll be eating avocados in order to avoid animal food and yet taking high dose statins and maybe doing harm to themselves, which has not been investigated properly. And that is a danger that, as a group of individuals who are interested in improving our health through lifestyle, we should recognize and modulate and force NIH or some other important body to investigate.
To me, there's three different variables I want to explore within this. One being a diet exclusively or very high in these plant cholesterol type molecules. Two, somebody on statins or not on statins. So basically with those two pieces, if you have somebody that isn't taking cholesterol in through the diet because they're only on plant-based, and say they're having a concentrated form of these phytosterols, but they're not on a statin, could that still overwhelm the system? Because they're taking in a lot through the diet. We'll take the statin aside right now. They're not taking in any regular cholesterol through animal products. Basically, I want to look at it from different angles and overwhelming the system with different variables. So, and we can also look at that. What if somebody's having less in the diet and they're having an omnivore diet, but they are on a statin? So their mechanism for disposing of the phytosterols isn't working properly. So we can look at it again. There's a couple angles there. There might even be other angles that we can look at this and in try and determine whether or not there's different situations this could be a problem. Because you talked about oil quickly and you mentioned olive oil and then also seed oils. These are products that are, to some degree or another, depending on which one we're talking about, refined. So would this be a problem if we weren't having the oils and we were only eating whole foods? That's another angle. There's so many different angles we could look at this. And why I want to explore it this way is just to see if somebody is taking a statin, not taking a statin, having a diet that's extreme in one way or another, whether or not these phytosterols could become problematic for them.
Very intriguing. And I wish I could give you definitive answers on that, but I could kind of shed some light. So let's take the first scenario that you pointed out. A person on a predominantly plant based diet but not taking a statin. So, in that situation, you could do Berkeley labs, and there are markers in the blood of phytosterols. So, that means you are an overabsorber. You're absorbing these phytosterols into your system, and you could see whether you are getting a high degree of phytosterols in your system. And you might be that particular individual because not all of us are the same. Some of us are hyperabsorbers and we are indiscriminate in whether we choose to pick cholesterol or phytosterols. And you can find that information by doing a specific test. Berkeley Labs has a very good way of looking at markers of phytosterols. But whether there is data already that people on a plant based diet without the use of statins, whether they have high markers of phytosterols in their blood, I don't know that. I would have to investigate that. The second question that you asked is that there is somebody who's an omnivore. In other words, he's eating both animal food and plant based food and is on a statin. Would that person be indiscriminate in terms of absorbing phytosterols? The answer to that is yes. There is clinical data, research data that shows that, yeah, the markers of phytosterols would be higher in this particular situation. The third question is also very intriguing, which is that you are looking at people who are consuming a lot of phytosterols through animal fat, seed oils, avocado oil, olive oil,
Plant fat, you mean?
whether that will make a difference.
No,
Go
I was
ahead.
just saying, you said animal fat, but you mean plant fat.
Yes, I'm sorry, plant fat. Plant fat meaning seed oils and avocado oil and olive oil. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to again investigate. But these are I'm hoping to watch this interview again and go back and review some of these things.
Yeah, a lot of it's just thought experiments, and I'm sure there's not good science on a lot of it, but just to throw it at you, somebody that's deep in this world, and just to get your thoughts on where we're at with all this.
Absolutely.
Next question related to the phytosterols is if somebody has incorporated those into the cell membranes, can they say they got off their statin and they changed up their diet? Have you seen any research showing if somebody starts including cholesterol through animal form, which is the only way to get it through the diet, that they can replace those phytosterols in the cell membrane with better cholesterol over time?
That's again an excellent question. And I think there is evidence, empiric evidence that exists because our human body, including the cell membrane, is not static. It's in dynamic equilibrium. In other words, cholesterol is being constantly replaced, degraded, removed through the bile, and we excrete it out as bile acids in our feces as there is changes in protein as well as fat. So the cell membrane is being constantly replaced. And I think that with regards to seed oils, they say if you're consuming seed oils and the seed oils become a part of your cell membrane, because our cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. In other words, it's a fatty bilayer. And just like phytosterols, the seed oils also get incorporated into our cell membrane. And the dynamic change is apparently somewhere in the order of about 3 years. In 3 years, you may get rid of the seed oil fat that you have put into your cell membrane. I'm not sure what is the time frame for phytosterols, but perhaps it's similar, I would venture to guess. And again, this is another thought experiment. I have to look back and see if there is any timing with relationship to the dynamic change in our cell membrane structure over time as to how long it takes.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
Phytosterol levels are significantly increased in people who are taking a statin. And this phytosterol is causing damage and harm that has not been properly investigated. With regards to the canola oil,